Welcome back to BYoungMinistry.com, to another blog and to another podcast. Welcome to those who access the podcast through Apple Podcasts, Rumble, Spotify, and YouTube. Today we continue in our study of Ruth chapter 2. We're in verses 17 through 19, which reads, "So she gleaned in the field until evening, and beat out what she had gleaned. It was about an ephah of barley. Then she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw that she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave to her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her, 'Where have you gleaned today? And where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you.' So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, 'The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz.'" That's Ruth chapter 2, verses 17 through 19. Today we return to our study of Ruth chapter 2. At the end of Ruth 1, we saw the pain of Naomi that had turned into bitterness. There had been a famine in Israel, so Naomi followed her husband Elimelech, taking along their 2 sons, to Moab for sustenance. Shortly after arriving in Moab, Elimelech died. Naomi's sons married Moabite wives, and then within 10 years, both sons died. At the end of Ruth 1, Naomi referred to herself as Mara, which means bitter, and she blamed God for her bitterness. This just underscores the fact that we can be in the family of God and still have our struggles trusting the Father. Our pain either pushes us in dependence to the Lord, or it pulls us away to be independent of the Lord. The outcome is determined by the disposition we embrace, either pride or humility. In Job chapter 36 and verse 15, we read, "He delivers the afflicted by their affliction and opens their ear by adversity." This means God grants us the ability to hear Him through the adversity that we face in this fallen world. It is through our struggles that we are granted the choice to choose to listen to the Lord and subsequently be defined by Him. Our pain draws us to God, and once we are walking with Him, we will realize that everything in this world is just as broken as we. Through this process, we learn to recognize and trust the voice of God, who leads us through this sin-laden world. In verses 17 and 18 of today's passage, we read, "So she gleaned in the field until evening, and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Then she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw that she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied." Ruth had traveled back to Bethlehem with her bitter mother-in-law Naomi, and she sought a job at a local grain field. God showed Ruth favor by giving her favor with a wealthy man of Bethlehem by the name of Boaz, who was attracted to her even though he was at least 15 years older. In these verses, we learn that Ruth worked all day gathering barley in the fields and sifting them. And now she had taken her harvest home to her embittered mother-in-law Naomi. At the end of verse 17, we learn that Ruth had gathered an ephah of barley for the day. This was no small amount of grain. In today's measurements, it was approximately a bushel of barley. Undoubtedly, it was rather heavy for Ruth to haul, especially after her long day of working. In all, the grain that she obtained was enough to feed both herself and Naomi for 5 days. Even though Ruth was worn out and exhausted, she was satisfied with her work and her harvest. All work has dignity because it reflects God's image in us. The first few words in the Bible reads, "In the beginning, God created." God created us to feel better about ourselves as we responsibly hold down a job. And if we do not take our cues from Him, we will be defined by something which is much lesser. This is the real issue, which is that we are being defined by God on a daily basis. According to Genesis 2:15, work existed before the fall of man. The Bible clearly informs us that God put man in the Garden of Eden to work it and to care for it. The one who brings home a paycheck to provide for themselves and their family has a sense of dignity and worth. God has made us this way, and when we are not being defined by Him, we will be defined by the lesser, which will always lead us down the road of destruction. In verse 19 of today's passage, we read, "And her mother-in-law said to her, 'Where have you gleaned today? And where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you.' So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, 'The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz.'" It was at this point that the grace of God came rushing in upon Naomi. The astonishment of Naomi was evident in the repetition of her questions. She asked, "Where have you gleaned today?" Then she asked, "And where did you work?" Knowing Ruth's character, there wasn't even a hint of wrongdoing in Naomi's questions. Instead of such thoughts, Naomi's confidence in her character was never questioned. Naomi then realized that someone must have taken note of Ruth's plight and chose to help her. This led Naomi to say, "Blessed be the one who took notice of you." It was at that moment that Ruth revealed the identity of the man who had helped her, and Naomi knew she was related to this man through her deceased husband Elimelech. Earlier we read that Ruth happened to come to the field owned by Boaz. But that was not how it actually came to pass. Ruth came to that field because God guided her there. To these unfolding events, Naomi responded with praise. Naomi was the woman who had earlier come into town saying, "Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me." This was the same woman who said, "The Almighty has afflicted me." Due to Ruth's walk with the Lord, Naomi was beginning to see more of God's unfolding plan for her, and she was responding in the right way. Most believe our sanctification, or the inculcation of God's culture into our souls, is about us. No, my friends. Our sanctification is so that others might look into our lives and see God at work through our yielded lives. God used Ruth to turn Naomi's bitterness to gratitude, her unbelief into faith, and her despair into hope. One person trusting the Lord and obeying His will could change a situation from defeat to victory. Ruth's faith in God's word led her to the field of Boaz. The love of Boaz for Ruth compelled him to pour out His grace upon her in the way He did. This is the lesson we are left with today through the life of a 25-year-old girl who grew up on the other side of the tracks. This is the lesson we gain from the one who had learned that her pain was useful to God to drive her to Himself and His culture. Like Ruth, we must be defined by the God of the Bible today, so that others might learn of Him through our yielded lives. My friends, I trust this blog and this podcast are helping you in your walk with the Lord. If I can be of further assistance to you, shoot me an email at BYoungMinistry@gmail.com. Hey, have a great day.